Hello and welcome to the Interior Design Business. My name is Jeff Hayward and I'm here with my co-host Susie Rumbold, past president of the British Institute of Interior Design and creative director of Tessuta Interiors, in front of a live audience of designers at Design Central Northwest, Capesthorne Hall. Today we're going to ask, is interior design too London-centric?
So, for the UK interior design industry, London acts like a black hole, sucking in product, education and designers to the exclusion of everywhere else. Little wonder you might think, when with a population of 9.3 million people, it's more than 3 times the size of its nearest rival city, Manchester. But is this how it should be? Talented and professional interior designers are constantly completing challenging, world-class, complex projects all over the country. And is this situation inevitable, or is the gravitational pull of London so great that these designers will always be poorly serviced by suppliers, educators, and by the design community at large? Welcome to the Interior Design Business.
Today, far, far away from the bright lights of London, we are joined by Fiona Watkins of Fiona Watkins Design, Cath McCubbin, founder of Design Central UK, and Kate Hatherell of the Interior Designers Hub. We're going to answer these questions and hopefully solve this conundrum.
But before we begin, actually, I was going to ask, could each of you give us a brief introduction to yourself and your business? So how long you've been established, the sort of projects you do. So Fiona, do you want to kick that off first, please?
I'm Fiona Watkins. I have a small studio in Cheshire, Fiona Watkins Design, and I've had my business for 15 years. I have a small team, there's just 4 of us, well, 5. But we work on all sorts of different projects, mainly residential, so no commercial.
And I'm Cath McCubbin, and I was an interior designer. And I first met Fiona Watkins over 20 years ago, along with Dawn, who's in the audience, when we all worked together at Laura Ashley, where we started out. I then went freelance and then eventually started Design Central 7 years ago. And this is now our 11th show, so we do more than just the Northwest.
And I'm Kate Hatherell and I run the Interior Designers Hub. I used to be a teacher and I retrained as an interior designer. And throughout my training and at the end of it, I came out at the end of it not knowing how to run a business. After much heartache, the Hub was created in order to support people like myself to get them into the industry and to really know what they were doing and protect them from legal problems and all sorts of things like that.
Great stuff. Now, first question really, are there many interior designers working in the regions, particularly the Northwest? What do you say, Fiona?
Yes, there's a lot of designers here. Through my involvement with the Northern Design Awards, we see a huge amount of talent, designers, architects, designer makers. So there is a huge wealth of talent north of London, for sure.
And presumably you wouldn't have shows unless there were.
Absolutely. So it's not just in the Northwest, it's over the whole country. So there's a Scotland show that David runs, that he's been running that for years. I know a fabulous interior design practice that works out just outside of Inverness that do amazing projects. The whole country, there's about 60 million people in the UK, only 10 million live in London. The other 50 million live all over the UK. So it would work out that there's a lot of designers everywhere else but London.
But you also must get a real sense of it because you know how many people register for your shows.
Yes, so we've got 1,000 people registered to come here for the next 2 days. The other shows, they're smaller events. They normally have about 500 to 600 registered. You get a dropout rate, but that's around about the figure. And then there's still untouched markets within that. So you might get small hotels who don't have an interior designer but do that work themselves. That then sparks an interest for one of their staff members, and the next thing you know is you've got somebody training to be an interior designer who maybe comes to Kate and goes through that practice, as it were, rather than say KLC or something like that.
And Kate, how many of the people that you help are London-based versus regional?
So we do have a pocket of people that are in the southeast in particular. There is definitely a higher concentration of people there. But we have designers from all across the country. And when I say the country, I don't just mean England. We have designers in Scotland, we have designers in Wales, both parts of Ireland as well. And it's very much that there is life outside of London.
Does the balance reflect the size of the population in the two areas? I know you say 50 million, but I think interior designers probably centre where there's wealth. So how reflective is the rest of the country, do you think, in that respect?
Personally, I think, yes, you do get interior designers are centred around areas that are seen as wealthy. However, I think that interior design is becoming more and more accessible to the masses. That sounds contrite, I don't mean it to. But more and more people are looking, if they're spending a lot of money on their homes and people are investing more in their homes, they want to get things right, and they are starting to look at using interior designers. And I think, sort of Dawn is in the audience, myself and Fiona, we started at Laura Ashley as interior designers, and we did have a very good base there and a good training at the start. And I think that's sort of what Kate is doing, because that's not there anymore. And Laura Ashley brought interior design to the mass market from the very beginning in some ways, and then continued that with its designers who then visited people in their homes. But nobody else has picked up that mantle. So you've now got lots of independent freelance interior designers doing that sort of thing. So it's accessible to everybody. It doesn't have to be to somebody who's wealthy.
And do you think that since COVID, because I know there was a flight to the provinces, wasn't there, during COVID, did many interior designers leave London and head for regions like Cheshire?
A lot of our reps are saying that there's been a huge move north from...
So these were practicing interior designers in London who now are...
Maybe they worked for larger practices and then decided to become independent. They were working on their own at home, etc. So, it's a quality of life.
Yeah, and not just the north. I've noticed that when we do the South West show, and again, our exhibitors, they're meeting with designers who were based in London, who left London, and they're now centred around Cornwall, Somerset, Devon, all those areas. They've moved that way. So they've sort of gone along the M4, for want of a better word, and planted themselves there rather than go up the M6 and plant themselves up here. It's both ways.
So, Fiona, is the market expanding
to
absorb the number of designers?
Definitely, and this is a huge area which will support a lot of interior designers. However, with my own practice, you find your niche. I don't do commercial, we just do residential, so another designer may wish to do commercial. So you will find your niche and your target where you want to go. It takes a few years. Took me a long time, but you find where you want to work, so then you concentrate on that. And as I say, this is a vast area, and we work all over. We don't just work in Cheshire, we work all over. So there's definitely plenty for everyone, for sure.
Kate, you're probably seeing growth all across the country in your services, aren't you?
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned, Susie, about COVID as well and the impact that had. And I think there were many people that actually came into the industry during that time. And we certainly saw an explosion of designers joining our membership during that period, because a lot of people were furloughed, were made redundant, and actually it gave them the chance to reevaluate what they were doing with their lives. And we did see a lot of people entering the industry. Now, these are quite often, and we see this a lot, that a lot of people that retrain to become interior designers are actually doing so as a second or third career, and they're often slightly older, they're already established, they've got children in local schools, and the last thing that they want to be doing is moving to London in order to pursue something that they're passionate about. And we, as I said, we have designers all over the country, and they're not all going to be heading to London and upending their lives just because they've changed career.
And probably another impact of the pandemic was that we're used to working from home, so it's easier to operate in that sort of environment now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as well the explosion of social media as well over the last 10, 15 years as well has really brought it home to people as something, as Cath was saying, that is more accessible to people these days. However, as much as you might like looking at beautiful images on Instagram, achieving that for yourself in your own home is a difficult thing to do. And I think that's where the interior designer comes in, and people do find it more accessible. And they are not just thinking of it as something that is an elite London-based thing. It is out there all over the place.
Do you think most designers regionally tend to work from home, or do they go to offices?
Yeah, the vast majority of people that we work with certainly work from home, and there are thousands of independent interior designers that just work for themselves. They don't have a big studio or a studio at all. It is just themselves. They may collaborate with other designers as well, so if they get bigger projects, they collaborate with other designers and other professionals to build a project team. But there are lots of people that are working on their own from home.
Interesting.
I do remember, and it will be about the time I started Design Central actually, and I shared a taxi with somebody from the harbour to the station, it was a rep who I didn't know particularly well, and we got chatting about what I was doing, and this is what we did. And we were talking about home workers as they were perceived then, so designers who worked from home. So the recession was not long over. A lot of designers were struggling to keep showrooms open because of the overheads and the costs, so decided to work from home. But these designers were being derided for doing that. They were just home workers. They weren't taken seriously. Yet some of them had had practices for years, and it was really not a good way that the industry was looking at how these people were working. And then, of course, you get COVID. Everybody's working from home. Oh, it's all right now because everybody else is doing it. But those people who started doing that could see the best way to make the business work for them was to actually focus from where their base was.
And I think people have been surprised by how possible it is to work from home as well, and how perfectly possible it is to create community, to create connections in an online way. Whereas in the past, many people thought that had to be done face to face. But in fact, I know for sure that a lot of our strongest relationships are actually those that are online, because it brings together people that have the same passions and the same interests, no matter where you're based geographically.
Yeah, so you don't have to be in London.
Just out of curiosity, are you studio-based or?
Yes, studio-based, although I have a very short commute next door because I work it's attached to home, but that's a conscious decision that I made because I like the convenience of it. I like having a team in the studio though. During COVID, I found it enormously difficult to work because our desk is, we're all joined together and we collaborate on everything, so I find that quite difficult. Some design friends that have had studios found it quite difficult because they get a lot of people coming in, time wasting, taking up a lot of their day, so it became apparent that they would then have to do more appointment-based work. So yeah, as I say, people that had studios, had showrooms, have then gone to sort of more appointment only. That's the majority of people that I know that have studios, that's what they've done now. They've made it appointment only so that people just can't walk in, even if it's on a high street, just because of the time, managing their time better.
It makes so much sense. Are there any barriers to entry, do you think, for designers who want to work in the Northwest or other regions?
No, I don't think so. It's what you make it. It's what you want it to be. How's the best way to achieve that? Do you need to do courses? Do you need to join the Interior Design Hub? Do you join the BIID? How do you focus on all of that? How does that work? And then away you go from there.
And the projects, Fiona, they're just as complex as you would get down in London. They're just as challenging for a designer, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
In fact, if more so, I'd say, with some of the beautiful old properties you've got up here in country estates, it's vast, isn't it?
We have a vast amount of wonderful properties, and a lot of what we do is restoration, refurbishment. So yeah, equally as many as there are down south, for sure.
Do you think London designers think they're superior to their out-of-town colleagues?
Me? No, I don't think that.
Oh, I think they do.
Do you? No, I don't know.
I
well,
do.
my experience might be different to yours.
Yeah, exactly.
But
we've all had different experiences, haven't we?
it's true, but I think, well, when I joined the BIID, I did find it a little bit overwhelming, actually. I know that in the last however many years, 5-7 years, it has completely changed. It's far more welcoming, far more inclusive, far more collaborative, everything, all those lovely words. When I first started, it was terrible. I had some awful experience with other interior designers, but we don't do that. You know, we like to be friendly and welcome and share knowledge. And
Kate, what do you think? Do you think there's a certain snobbery?
No, I don't. I don't think there's a snobbery based geographically. I do think there is an elitist kind of feeling between higher end designers and those that serve the more sort of mass market. But no, I mean, we've got designers in the southeast, we've got designers in London, and they're all equally as lovely as those in the northwest and everywhere else.
Good, that's good to hear. Okay, practicalities. How easy is it for non-London designers to source product for their projects? Fiona?
well, I mean, obviously I've been doing this for a while now, so you build up relationships.
Yeah.
And these are from visits to various design shows, whether it's to ones in Birmingham, whether it's to ones in London, whether it's to lovely Design Central here or wherever. That's what you do, and you then build on those relationships. So sourcing product, I mean, if you think about what is from Birmingham upwards, we have fantastic brassware manufacturers. We have the hugest upholstery is like Long Eaton. You know, there's all of these things which are sort of local to our area. So I think easy, really. You just look, Instagram, social media, things like that.
I agree with Fiona, there is so much around, you've got to look for it. You know, here at Design Central, some of our exhibitors do have London showrooms and they know that they do not get the visits from the regions. And I don't just mean the Northwest, I mean the whole of the rest of the country. But a lot of these people who are here don't have these big showrooms in Chelsea. So they will do shows like this and they'll do maybe Scottish interiors because that's how they get their contacts, but equally that's how people in the regions can make those contacts. You know, the sofas we're sitting on, they're from a Long Eaton. You can catch up with James and Ian down the corridor here, and if you want to go and see their showroom, they have got the most amazing showroom. They just don't shout about it. But it's all about, for them, it's all about the relationships that they make at events like this. And then you've got that relationship as a designer with them, and whatever you need, they will help you sort that out. So it is, I think it can be quite easy if it's the right thing that you're looking for. If you're going into the harbour and you go into a showroom for some fabric, they'll glance at you and they'll glance away. They're not interested. And I think that's what a lot of people see, and that puts them off. But it shouldn't be like that. It doesn't have to be like that.
Kate, do you have a perspective on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd agree with that, really. I think there is this kind of feeling that Design Centre Chelsea Harbour is like the only place that you can go, and you know, without a doubt it is kind of a mecca for interior designers. It's a fabulous place, but it's not the only place, and I think it's something to do with experience as well. I think the longer you're in the industry, the more suppliers you become aware of, the more product you become familiar with, and you know, you build up your own sample libraries, you become aware of what's out there. And you don't always need to go and, you know, check. If you know a supplier and you know their quality and you know their credentials, you've seen them, you've felt it, you've had that tactile experience of what their product is. You don't need to do that every single time you specify a product. So I don't think that there is always the need to go to the, you know, the showrooms of these places. But there are, as the others have said on the panel, there are places all around the country that do have showrooms outside of London. I think London is fantastic, and you know, for international things as well, it's important that people have their, you know, flagship stores there. But there are certainly lots of other places throughout the country.
But moving away from fabric for a minute, what about other things? You know, things like bathrooms, tiles, lighting. Do you think in the regions that you have access to this? I mean, the thing about London, we're so spoilt for choice. It's all, you know, you can't step out the door without tripping over a supplier. Quite literally sometimes. Yeah. But you know what I mean? There are many other product types. Yeah, do you think it's a struggle?
There's loads up here.
Absolutely loads. There's some amazing bespoke kitchen makers, bespoke furniture makers, tile companies.
Yeah, fabulous tile showrooms. And they often hold events, whether it's tiles or flooring from lovely Heavwoods. You know, they put on events, they invite designers, and and they're all local, you know, so we can get there and you can see all the new product, and you know, it's really, really useful.
There's a huge mattress company, I think, opening the showroom in Knutsford soon as well, isn't there? So, you know, and I think when these designers perhaps at COVID moved out of London, they moved out of London because they were following customers. Their customers were leaving London because a lot of people left London, not just designers.
That's right. It sounds like that's a trend too, that there is this kind of dissemination of what was a London-centric thing, perhaps that's beginning to dissolve into the regions.
Possibly.
Which is great. What about sampling? Is it easy to get sampling?
Yeah, absolutely. It's often next day delivery. If you've got good trade accounts and good trade relationships, there's no problem getting samples at all.
And they send the samples from the London showrooms, or from where are they getting samples?
Wherever they have their sampling.
Yeah, it depends who it is. Or you can use companies like Swatchbox who collate all the samples and then just send it out in one hit, which is very good, because you're not getting loads and loads of different packages. You're choosing things and getting them all sent in one go.
Is there actually a design hub in the Northwest? Is it Manchester or is it
It's Design
Chester?
Central.
Is there someone?
It's us.
It's you. But you're here just 2 days?
We're here just 2 days a year.
I know, I told her she needs more shows. Come on, Cath.
We've got more
Come on,
shows, they're
Cath.
just not here.
But I mean, do you think somewhere like Chelsea Harbour could work up here in Wilmslow, Knutsford or somewhere?
I think if you had somewhere in the right place and it was in the right location, which is I don't think is Manchester at all, because it's becoming more and more difficult to get into the city if you don't drive. If you drive, if there isn't enough public transport, it's very hard to get into the city now. But somewhere that's easy to get to, that has got a rail link, has got motorways, that type of thing. It should be fairly simple.
I suppose for brands it must be an investment decision.
It is an investment. I mean, to invest in a showroom in Chelsea Harbour, the cost is extraordinary, and they've got to make that work. But if you go to the harbour when there's not an event on, there is nobody there. You know, the showrooms are all manned, but it's empty. And I think if you had somewhere in the northwest, you'd need to make sure that it was constantly viable and it was lively and there was things going on and it was accessible to everybody. I think if you had something like the harbour up here, you'd have to be careful that it didn't become too like. Yeah. You said that, not me.
I think it's just longer and more frequent shows, Cath.
More frequent shows.
Yes.
How you doing?
Okay. You can do it.
They're all going up on me now.
And what about the reps? Do you get visits from everyone? Do you find?
Yeah, plenty. Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
they contact you, or you have to contact them?
No, they always contact us when there's like new collections to launch, or quite often as well, because obviously we have to hold book libraries. It's not a case of going to a central place and looking for fabrics, etc. We hold libraries. So sometimes we're looking for something particular and we'll phone whichever rep and say, look, we need this, and they'll usually come with all their sampling and you can scheme using all of their
Yeah, I think a lot of London designers are perhaps in the habit of not having book libraries because they maybe don't have the space. It's so expensive to live down there, and they go into the harbour to do sampling. Whereas up here, the sampling generally sort of comes to you.
Yeah, I think, actually, if I'm honest, I think that the days of individual designers having lots of fabric libraries, lots of books, are probably waning, coming to an end. I do think that with the availability, the quality of the imagery that's on websites, the fast availability of sampling, getting stuff to your house, people don't want to be investing hundreds of pounds in one fabric way when you've got so many suppliers out there, and I just don't think that it's economically viable to be buying fabric books from all of the different brands that you want to be specifying, and in fact it's much more cost effective to be familiar with the different ranges but then to order individual samples of the things that you want to be specifying.
If you go back into the mists of time, once, Colfax and Fowler, for example, used to had to buy books from them to the tune of 800 quid per year, that's a lot of books per annum, in order to actually have a drain account. They wouldn't allow you to trade.
They don't do that now.
No,
but I must say we do use our book library a lot. And again, it's finding your niche and what you like and what you know your customers will like. We only have about 5 or 6 brands that we use regularly, and we hold their books because it's very useful, and we find it useful to use them, and it's inspirational. You have all these lovely books and imagery and things, so for us it is a big thing that we do still use.
I do think that if you can try to have too many different
brands, you can.
Brands. You need to limit yourself you find your sort of your style's not the right word, but what you will use, what you think your clients will like, because you know what your clients' base is, you know what your clients like, what they would like. A new book comes out from a rep and you think, oh, I know such a body would love that. I've just been down the corridor and see one, I thought I've got a client who would love that. And you keep that tight, like Fiona says, so you've not got lots of books, but if you need something different, you can then go out for
also keeping them a
sampling.
bit niche so that they can't go to the high street and find it. You find things that are special, because when a client hires an interior designer, they want something special, something unique, something different. So by having niche brands that are only sort of trade brands, they're not in John Lewis or then. And again, that was something that I learnt very early on. I wanted to have product and brands that were quite niche.
In the interest of sustainability, the worst thing that you can do is build a scheme around a fabric that's from a high street retailer,
Yep.
so that, you know, it's so obviously spring summer 2023,
Yeah.
and it's going to date in about 5 minutes flash.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Or the client just then goes into John Lewis and goes, oh, I'll just buy it in John Lewis.
Yeah.
You know, that's not what you want. And it's about finding different brands. Again, which is why we've got, you know, lots of different things.
That's
Say,
right.
Maria Flora, things
Yeah,
like that.
that's right.
You know, that's not on the high street.
No.
Nobody will find those lovely linens
That's right.
in John Lewis.
I must say, listening to you, I'm getting a sense that there's a shift going on, that there's a real confidence about you. And do you need London?
Unless you want to go to a party, no.
I do.
What do you need London for?
I was being
Fiona?
very flippant.
I love going to London. I'm sorry, I can't
Yeah.
say no to that, because I do. I love it because I still find it very inspirational. Shows like Clerkenwell are fabulous. It's very buzzy. It's the atmosphere. It's like here, Cath,
Yeah.
right? So you get the atmosphere where all these people looking at books and everyone's positive and enthusiastic, and that's, you know, we love that.
So
And
it's
my
more-
son lives down there as well, so I go visit. So.
So it's more of a social buzz, you would say?
Well, it is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
We're there to work, but it's also very social, you know?
And I think that can be achieved anywhere in the country, as we see
Yes.
here. It's
Yes.
about bringing people together,
It is.
bringing product together, that helps, and suppliers, and getting to know people, but it doesn't have to be London. And actually, if you look at the geography of the UK, actually getting to London is really difficult for lots of people. I mean, we're only in North Somerset, and you'd think that's not too difficult, kind of, you know, we're just going east to get to London. But actually,
No.
if you're using public transport in particular, getting there is a real pain. And it can take 5 hours or more to get to London. It's not really feasible for you to be doing that on a regular basis. You know, and if you're living down in Cornwall or, you know, in much further away places, it's just not feasible to do it. So I think you can get that real buzz. You can meet like-minded people all over the country. And thanks to events like Cath and her team put together, it makes it possible for people that aren't able to get to London. I don't think we need it, sorry.
No. I was talking to an exhibitor who was in down at Focus last week, and they felt that London was becoming more social, that they were not doing sufficient business, for want of a better word, whereas when they come to events like this, they know that it will be quite social, it's quite relaxed, but the designers who come to this event and all of our other events, they're there to work, they're there to find suppliers, they're there to look at new collections. They're not just here socially to catch up with a mate from down the road and things like that. They want to be here and they want them to be here. So by them investing in coming to Design Central, because it costs them to be here, and not just, you know, to be here, but also in staffing and everything else, they're getting a return on that, because the designers who come are appreciative that they've come here and they haven't got to go to London to see them. So it's a whole, same at the Southwest, you know, there was such a buzz in the Southwest when we did the show this year, as you well
Yeah.
know.
They really was.
Brilliant
It was
show.
Really
Yeah.
exciting.
Go to the southwest.
So obviously it's not just the harbour, but you mentioned Clerkenwell. But I mean, you know, in London now we've got Clerkenwell, we've got Shoreditch. There are so many different design districts.
Yep.
Do you think regional designers are able to cover all those bases? Do they need to cover all those
I
bases?
don't know. It's very individual, isn't it? It's what people want to do. I like to go there because I find it personally quite inspiring. So it's very individual. For us, I mean, we don't have the same hassle that you have, Kate.
No.
For us, getting north to south, I can get down there in an hour and 40 minutes. So it's really not a big deal. But again, as I say, there's a vast amount of showrooms. There's pop-ups. There's all sorts of very, very interesting things, like London Design Festival as well. You get, again, just niche brands, and that's what we're looking for as a studio. We're looking for something unique and different.
Things, yeah.
Yeah, just that little gem, whether it's a fabric, whether it's I don't know what it might be. It could be pottery, it could be an artist, it could be all those things. So, you know, that's what we look for.
Okay, let's move on to shows. I mean, obviously we're here at Design Central Northwest, we've got Design Central Southwest,
Yes.
and the show you've opened in Essex. But do you think there is enough for designers in the regions to sustain them, those kind of events or exhibitions?
Yes, I think there is. I think when I first started this, there was nothing here at all, absolutely nothing. And since we started this, you start a ball rolling, people start going, oh, well, if somebody else has done that, I can do that, or I can do that. And there's little shows pop up. So there was something going on in Manchester yesterday, I don't know what it was, a fabric show somewhere. but I think that was more commercial. So there's quite a lot of commercial things go on in the city centre in Manchester, because there's a lot of architects' practices now in Manchester city centre. There's lots of building going on there, that type of thing. Other shows around here, there's ourselves. There's not much more than that, really, is there?
There's Design Festival North, which was on in the summer, but I felt that was more commercial, so it wasn't really for me. But it was still interesting to see who was there and what exhibitors there were.
And in the southwest?
So I think we would benefit from more events like the sorts of events that Design Central put on. I mean, obviously we have Bristol, we have Bath, and they have lots of things there. But in terms of, with your shows, the shows have to be big enough to make it worthwhile going. You don't want to go to a little show that's only got a few local suppliers there, because it's not really worth your while doing that. And so the sorts of things that, Cath brings around the country does put you in touch with some of those, bigger brands that you want to be talking to without having to go there. But I definitely think there's room for more. Sorry, Cath. Come back, another show.
Come back another show.
Twice a year.
Yeah. And the one thing about the Southwest is I have got a list of about 6 up-and-coming small brands of wallpapers, fabrics, who want a space but who do not have big budgets to pay for a space. But we need the big budget people in to cover the costs. And I then try and get them a small space, but there's so many of them. And I feel like I want to help them, but I can only help so many at a time. So there's all these gorgeous things out there that I want people to see, but I can't always get it to them. I think there's got to be another way of doing that. I'm thinking about that as well at the minute. That is possibly another show that on a different guise, but there's lots of different things to see. That, as Fiona says, it's small shows or, that type of thing.
Is there scope for doing road shows?
There are roadshows already, so Taste of Design do a roadshow, but that would be really difficult to do. This is difficult enough to set this up, and 3 of these a year is hard work, don't get me wrong. But perhaps a smaller one, or we do an add-on to another day to this that's maybe new designers come and that type of thing. But it's finding the space. We're 85 metres long here, so we can go further. If we go any further, we've got to extend out onto that lower lawn, and that you end up with this leviathan that you can't control. And I am a bit of a control freak. I think most designers are, actually. We like control of everything. And you've got to be careful that you don't go too big, that then it loses its sense of identity.
Yeah, true. Okay, let's move on to education, because I'm interested to know what the pipeline is like outside of London, where most London universities are offering interior design degrees these days. What about the regional universities? Are there courses that are accessible for people, and is that feeding through into a potential workforce for you?
There are degree courses. So Manchester Metropolitan University offers a degree course in interior design. So does Chester. Falmouth University. My experience of those courses, and it's very limited from those areas, is we've had students from Falmouth helping us at shows, and they've been phenomenal. One of them is still with us even after she's qualified. She comes to help because she loves the show so much. But what they were doing on those courses, it was interior design, but it would not relate to a commercial or a residential design practice. The minute they left university, they were starting at the ground up again, because the stuff that you would need them to know, they did not know.
That's right.
And this is exactly what we find, and it's actually the reason that our hub exists, because we were finding, and myself included, as I said, when I came out of education, I didn't know what I was doing either. And there are lots of people, lots of designers that come out of their education programs, whether that's diplomas or degrees, not knowing what to do next and not knowing how things actually work on the ground. And that's kind of the gap that we plug, really, is that real practical, hands-on, tangible, this is how you do the job. And some of the strengths of that come from the community that's around. So there are places that do interior design degrees, but also there are many people that are diploma qualified and don't go on to take the degree programmes. Again, we have an online programme where you can get your diploma, and I do think that people are moving away from going to brick and mortar institutions, and I think education is really changing. People, as I said, are educating themselves later in life. They are changing careers, and people have to fit education around children, around caring for elderly relatives, around their existing careers because they need to keep working whilst they're studying, and having flexible online options is actually becoming increasingly really important. And as I said, most of our people are midlife career changers rather than those that would ever consider going to a brick and mortar university.
What about continuing professional development, CPDs? How easy is it for people in the regions to stay up to date with regulations and product launches, and not product launches so much, but more, knowledge?
We were due to have a CPD today and tomorrow from alternative law, and unfortunately that has had to be cancelled through family ill health. But events like this, CPDs can easily be done this way. Or there's lots of things online. The BIID do lots of CPDs.
Yeah, they have a knowledge hub. So
they have a knowledge hub. The in-person ones are generally in London. That's moving some of those out of London would be great. If they could get those moved up.
I was CPD director of the Beach and tried desperately to try and get some stuff happening in the regions. And we did do one. Do you remember that? We did do one event in Manchester, but oh my God, it was like it's so hard.
It is really hard.
It was really tricky.
Yeah.
And part of the problem was getting people to sign up for it.
That's right.
It wasn't even just that people weren't. There were people that were willing to put CPDs on, but then getting designers to commit was part of the battle.
I think people are really time poor as well. We all have such busy lives that actually committing to and attending an in-person event is actually quite a big commitment. The CPD that we offer is online, and you just have to log on at the right time to catch that live or to catch the recording afterwards, and it's a much quicker thing than having to go to an event, organise your transport, book your time out, book your childcare, whatever it is. And I do think that things are moving away from always being in person.
These are the skills that we learned during COVID, aren't they?
Yes,
right.
yeah, absolutely.
And for a lot of people, it's not just childcare; it's elderly parent care as well. So there's a lot of people sort of a bit younger than myself who have got children. They've also got elderly parents, and they're stuck in the middle. Managing childcare is maybe the easy part. Managing elderly parent care is a whole other ball game, and you're then trying to get a CPD in somewhere online as well. Sometimes it's nice to escape to do that because it gives you time to yourself rather than doing it online, because you might still have that little voice in the background. So I think a mix of both would be really good, online and be able to do them in person.
I agree. I do think that sometimes there's, I don't know if it's an old-fashioned view or an elitist view, that doing something online is not as good as doing it in person. And I really do think that is shifting, and that is changing, and that people are embracing the fact that education can be delivered even better than in person online. You can build amazing communities online. You can have your CPD, things are much more accessible when you just have to log in via your laptop as opposed to going somewhere in person. And I'm not saying at all that in-person events are not worth it, of course they are, but I do think that having something that's available online really does make the whole industry more accessible to people.
And Fiona, you sit on the British Institute of Interior Design Council of Directors. So what role has the BIID got in all of this, do you think?
In terms of
CPDs? Broadening education out to the regions, supporting interior designers in the regions?
What I was trying to say is the BIID true London-centric?
Absolutely.
Yes, they are. Yes,
Absolutely
they are. I'll be the first one to say yes, they are. However, they are trying to change that, and myself and Verity, who was on your panel last year, are the champions of outside of London, absolutely rooting for the fact that we need to either send more people out, etc. Like lovely Daisy's here today, so if any of you are interested in the BIID, then go and speak to Daisy. She's very lovely. She's very lovely.
Super.
Yeah, she is.
So we've partnered with the BIID for our next 3 shows as well. We are Design Central with the BIID, making design regional. That's what we are trying to do.
Yeah.
So we've got Daisy here today. We're hoping Daisy may be able to join us in South West and other places. But also we've got Kate and her team as well doing a similar sort of thing.
Yeah.
I think that building that sense of community is really important, because it can be a lonely job if you're stuck out somewhere a long way away from other people. So,
Definitely.
And you've talked a lot about online communities helping
Yeah, absolutely. And although our community is online, we do also meet up in person as well. And what we find as well about, we have one central community where people come together online, but people also meet up together. So they've met each other through the hub, and they then go and meet up at local things or just go out for coffees together. We've got people here today from the hub, that because you've got this event here and it's local to people, they're coming here as a central point in the Northwest to meet up, and they're going to spend the day together, they're going to look at some suppliers, they're going to connect. So online communities very much spill out into real life, and they don't have to be just exclusively online or exclusively in person. But the beauty of it is that you can connect nationally with people that are interested in the same thing, and then you can look for your smaller communities regionally as well.
We were talking about, there was a fantastic group. I'm just wondering what other opportunities or what other attempts there have been to get regional networking groups happening. Be it online or in person. And there were, a few years back, there was a fantastic group called Concept North, who were arranging CPDs and designer events and da-da-da-da. What happened to them? They were fabulous, those guys.
They were, and they're still about. They're just really busy.
So
really busy
their day jobs got really, really busy.
That's the problem then, isn't it?
Unfortunately,
Really, you need someone like you, Kate, that's kind of focusing on that and giving someone a platform. And you can't do that and have a day job and look after elderly parents and organise your children.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Also, I think they did find it quite difficult to get people again to come to events.
It's people committing. They'd get a load of people sign up, and then they'd have 50% dropout.
You do. Anything that you book like these events, you always work on a minimum sort of 50% dropout. We're quite fortunate. Ours is generally about 35 to 40%. That's how you do it. Anything like that, you've got to get twice as many people invested as will come.
Yeah. Okay, so final question for you, Cath. I kind of know the answer already, but I'm going to ask it anyway. What's the one piece of advice you would give to suppliers who would like to sell more in the regions?
Come to Design Central. There you go.
Any other advice, Cath?
Yeah, come and have a look. There is a plethora of interior designers, not just in the Northwest. There's a young lady has got on a ferry from the Isle of Man to come here today. She's driving on a motorway for the second time in her life. And if somebody like that is prepared to make that effort, the least you can do is come and show what you've got. If you want her to sell your stuff, come and show them what you've got.
And Isle of Man, huge market.
Huge market.
Yeah.
And then Fiona, what is the one piece of advice you would give to designers to enable them to access the products, information, and the community enjoyed by the Londoners?
Join the BIID, I would say. But this is where I met so many people. We have a fantastic supplier network. You can do CPDs online. They meet up every few months. It's a fantastic community. I've met some really lovely people. I felt very supported if I've had questions. There's an absolute huge amount of information on the BIID website. So that would be my advice. Lovely, supportive people.
Kate, if there are any designers in the regions with FOMO, what would you say to them?
Definitely, obviously, come and join the Interior Designers Hub.
It's almost like it's staged, this, isn't it?
Thank you for the
But
plug.
you could have noticed that.
So we bring the suppliers to our designers as well. So we have suppliers that come in and do guest speaker slots. They'll present their new ranges. And they often sometimes put on events around the country as well. So they'll invite our designers to go and have a look at their factories or their manufacturing plants. And so, there are those opportunities to build relationships with suppliers, to build relationships with other interior designers. And can I just say as well that this industry is amazing for collaboration. And in our community, I've never seen such amazing collaboration and willingness to help and support other people. And I think especially when you're a sole interior designer on your own and you don't have a studio of people that are around you, having that community that you can tap into whenever you need it is priceless.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
As a designer, I used to love a factory visit.
Yeah.
Loved a factory visit.
Oh, yes, I love a factory visit too. Nothing nicer.
The very first one I ever did was when I was at Laura Ashley. It was Knightsbridge Furniture in Barnsley. And we went, and there was literally tree trunks going in one end and furniture coming out the other. It was amazing.
Brilliant.
And it just, when you know how stuff's made as a designer, you can sell it to anybody because you've seen how that works.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and also you can give the client the story, so then they tell the story.
Absolutely.
They love it.
Yeah,
they love it.
that's right.
So this is just one, the lucky last question, sort of just open to anyone who's got, what is the most funny or shocking London-centric thing that's ever happened to you? Open to the floor.
Go on, Kath, you've got a good one.
Where do we start? I don't know. Oh, possibly.
Not knowing where Cheshire was.
Not knowing where Cheshire is. No, I think one of the best ones. I took a client down to one of the, it was like Focus or whatever, because we were doing a huge project and we could go and see everything, and she was lovely. And we used to do the transport between Sloane Square and the harbour. So we got into the transport, and there was a little old lady outside with these bags wandering around. Anyway, she got into the front of the transport. It was like, I think she thinks this is a bus. So I'm not saying that. So my client said to her, you do know this is just going to the harbour? Oh yes, darling, I've always been there. Right, okay, so off we go. So we're trotting around, and about 3 hours later we saw her on a bar stool in Fox Linton, where she promptly slid to the floor. We saw her being slowly, surreptitiously moved out, put back in the bus, and taken back to Sloane Square. And apparently she was some really famous interior designer who I didn't know, had never seen, and she used to come every year for the party. And it was like, that is the most bizarre thing I've ever seen in my life. But it was the way she gently just slid off the stool into a little pile on the floor of Fox Linton showroom.
Thank you so much. Can we have a round of applause, please?
Ladies, that was great. Thank you so much.
Thank
You've
you.
just given us such an overview, and I just can see that there is this amazing kind of enthusiasm and joy and movement out into the regions away from London. So London, look out.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There is life outside London.
There is.
It absolutely is. Thanks so much for today. Thanks also for hosting us on this
You are
wonderful
very
day.
welcome.
And
Very welcome.
delighted to be here. And thanks also to our series partners, Hatherell. They've got a big bus parked outside. I'm sure you've seen it. The prevailing name in beautiful wood flooring. We thank them too for their support. We do hope you've enjoyed this episode, and please do get in touch on our social channels at Interior Design Business Pod to share any feedback. The Interior Design Business is a Wildwood Plus production. Thank you.